What's going on, guys? I'm 12-Man Cam, bringing you your weekly dose of Seahawks content. Hopefully. It really all depends on if I can ever get this out on a weekly basis. It's always up in the air at that point. But anyways, bringing you your content here today of the Seahawks. Week 1 of the NFL that we just got into. We're like only about a day removed from the Lions and Chiefs game. That game on its own was extremely interesting, just because I think everybody was kind of cheering for the Lions at that point. Unless you were a Chiefs fan, then you were cheering for the Chiefs on that one. But I think a lot of people, consensus, were kind of with the Lions on that one, and they were kind of making a point of that, the Lions would have won, but at least if they were competitive, that would have said a lot about them. But they actually won, and I'm not going to lie, I was cheering for them. Not that I have any issues with the Chiefs or Patrick Mahomes or whatsoever. But I just thought that, honestly, I would kind of want the Lions just because it would be a nice underdog story that they got going. And they pulled it off. And I'm going to be... And honestly, what they pulled off, honestly, is, I think, did help change what I thought of the Seahawks schedule going into it, because we do face them in the schedule. So, hopefully, it won't affect the schedule too much. I mean, at least in terms of what the Seahawks record will be. But that's what this video will be, essentially. It will just be, I'll be going over the Seahawks record, going over what they did last season, what I think they'll do this season, and what we could expect from the team coming in. So to start the record, our first game will be, well, in 2 days, and that will be against the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams, in a very interesting scenario right now, because they are... I can't even say they're coming off of a Super Bowl hangover, because this is starting to turn into a Super Bowl, or not even a Super Bowl drought. This is just turning into a drought in general for them. They didn't play very well last season. They were probably one of the worst defending Super Bowl champions in NFL history. If anyone can find anything worse, I'd like to see it. But right now, I think the Rams are the worst defending Super Bowl champions. They practically threw everything they could for a ring, and it worked, but overall, they're not doing anything now. Most important things that the Rams are, they're just in complete chaos right now. Not complete chaos, just they're a bit out there. Jalen Ramsey, unfortunately gone, is now on with the Dolphins. Cooper Kupp, I think, is injured and is up in the air whether he's going to play. Matthew Stafford apparently can't connect with... God damn it, phone! I just lost my train of thought now.
A few moments later.
Matt Stafford, unfortunately, is showing that he can't seem to connect with his younger teammates. That's at least from what his wife was saying. Aaron Donald possibly could be considering retirement. There are no full reports on that if he is, but he might consider it, honestly, with where this team's heading. And so it is just not a good moment for the Lions right now. They're hoping maybe they can turn it back around in a few years, but at least they'll have a first-round pick this year, because apparently... before they've just decided to say, hey, fuck them picks. Let's just throw everything for, a chance at a ring. But right now they are not in a good scenario. And going against a division rival team that is looking honestly just as good as they were last year, and with a possible chance of looking better than they have before, than what they were looking like last year. It all depends on just, how the season actually plays out and health and everything. So this game, I have Seattle winning this, just because the Rams are in complete desperation right now. So, Seattle fans, you should be excited for that one. And going into week 2, we will take on the Detroit Lions. Now, this is the game that I initially thought, hey, Seattle could absolutely win this one. We'd have to bake off the fact that if Detroit can continue the success they had last season, they just barely missed the playoffs, thanks to Seattle. Had Seattle lost that last game, then Detroit, them beating Green Bay, would have sent them to the playoffs. And they were some team I would have cheered for. Fuck. God, get something in my eye. They are a team I would have cheered for going into the playoffs had Seattle not been that. Because I think that team's been in such disrepair for a long time now. And now to finally, hopefully, see some modicum of success from them is something that I think is so great. And I think that's what definitely puts them on top. Like I said, that game against the Chiefs, they really showed out. They didn't even have to win to prove anything. They just had to compete, and they competed, but not competed, just competed, they won. And that's what was so great about it. So in this game, this actually changed my prediction for this, because initially I was thinking, yeah, Seattle could probably get the win. It'd be a close endeavor. I still think it's going to be a close endeavor. I don't think Seattle's going to give up and die. But I do think that at least now this changes to the fact that I think the Lions will win this one. You have an incredible amount of confidence going into week 2. Considering you just dethroned the Super Bowl champions. The fact that you did that, your confidence should be through the roof right now. So I think the Lions, this is going to be a close matchup, and I think the Lions are going to take this one. And that's just the truth, honest of it. Going into week 3, we have the Carolina Panthers. Now, Carolina, in their own way, in a interesting scenario. Of course, they got Bryce Young. I was going to say CJ Stroud, but no, CJ Stroud's the Texans. I'm terrible at keeping track of rookies that aren't my team, or at least ones that are notable of count. But
oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, the Panthers, they gave up practically a lot so that they could select Bryce Young first overall. Bryce Young looked okay in the preseason. Obviously, new to... Of course, he needs time to settle in. That's of course with normal rookies. And of course, that will definitely take time. But he looked all right. I think that, honestly, the Panthers are just going to be in a mid situation. I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they're going to be mid is what they're going to be. Bryce Young, definitely going to need some more time to develop. I think throwing him in right now may not be the best idea, but you really don't have any options if you want success from this team. He is going to be the day one starter. I think they'll be mid at best, but if you're going up against a Seattle team like this, I think you're not going to stand not much of a chance, because the Seahawks do have a reputation of kind of giving up to opponents they should stomp. Trust me, they did it with the Panthers last year. But I definitely think that while they're going to be better than last year, they're still going to be pretty mid. So I honestly have Seattle winning this one. And then their next opponent will be the New York Giants.
All hail the New York Giants!
Now, the game against the Giants last year was incredibly close. That was a game I honestly had no idea which way it would go. Seattle did pull out the win, which was amazing. Because the Giants did look good last year. They looked really good last year. They were able to pull out a victory against the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs, and then they ended up losing to Philly in the not the NFC Championship game. Was it the NFC Championship game? No, it was not the NFC Championship game because they faced the Eagles in the NFC. Okay. But they did not beat the Eagles, but they pulled out a good game against the Vikings and were able to knock the Vikings out, which I know a lot of Packers fans are going to be happy about. But the Giants still are looking good. They paid Danny Dimes all the money he wanted, which I question. I question because of Danny Dimes, but I question the same thing with Geno Smith and the money he got when his contract happened. They're on the fence with Saquon Barkley because Barkley wants to be paid, but the running back market has severely diminished. But it's not just him. Guys like, Saquon Barkley, guys like Josh Jacobs, who had to take a pay cut, or not even pay cut, but he had to sign a lower contract just to stay with his team. Guys like Aaron Jones, who did take a pay cut. Zeke is completely gone. Guys like Tony Pollard haven't even found new contracts yet, which they will have to next season, because I think Pollard maybe just signed a franchise tag. Not 100% sure on that. But yeah, the running back market being severely diminished, it'll all depend on just what kind of mindset Saquon Barkley is going to be in, knowing the fact that he's not getting the massive amounts of money and how that will affect his game, and just the fact of will he continue to be healthy like he did last season. Last year, I thought he wasn't going to be very healthy. He was. He was able to stay on the field, and he produced and showed why they at least needed him. But again, like I said, with that diminishing running back market, it can all depend. They brought in guys like Darren Waller, who I think will be an improvement in the receiving game, giving Danny Dimes more targets to throw to. But overall, in this game, it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to give a W to the Seahawks here. I will think this could be a very, very close game like last year. But I'm just going to have the Seattle just because I think there's a lot of questions with the Giants. Especially, and a lot of that comes to their track record. So, Seattle should hopefully enjoy a W at the end of that week. Then, going into week 5, which will be a bye week. That'll be Seattle to get a good start. So, there won't be much of there. It's just a heel week, and everything. But going into week 6, this is where it gets interesting. We will have the Cincinnati Bengals. This is what I think will be a big loss for the season. Not a big loss, but I think this is one that people will kind of reasonably expect Seattle to lose. Joe Burrow just got a massive contract. The Bengals do have questions on their secondary, considering they lost a good chunk of people. But overall, I think that offense is still way too good. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, that's going to be an impressive combination that young Seattle defense is going to have to watch out for. And ultimately, I think the Bengals are going to be that team that is going to prove to Seattle that they are the better one. So Seattle's unfortunately going to lose that one. Going into week 7, however, this should be a turning point where we face the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, they are in a very, very unfortunate scenario right now. New head coach. Their quarterback is very uncertain. Kyler Murray's not even starting week 1. It's either going to be Josh Dobbs, who they recently acquired from the Browns. And I don't even know. I can't even remember off the top of my head who their other quarterback was. Apparently they've said they made a decision, but they really haven't made that choice, or haven't showed what they're going to be that choice. And going into this first game, it's not going to be very well for them. They have lost a lot. J.J. Watt, retired. D-Hop is gone because no one would even bother trading for him, and he just ended up signing with the Titans. Buda Baker clearly looks like he wants out. So it's just a bad scenario. They are going now. It's now on for the question whether Kyler Murray is the future of their franchise. And that's going to be up for them to decide. I'm not going to put more info on this because, frankly, I think people will bring up the fact that I am a Seahawks fan, so I think it could be a bias, which is fine. But overall, they are just in a bad scenario, and this should ultimately be an easy win for Seattle. And going into week 8, we will take on the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland really has a lot to prove this year, not only because I think they're in a tough division, of course, with the Bengals and the Ravens. But I definitely think that it is a prove-it year for someone like Deshaun Watson. Watson, of course, has that massive contract, played his first year, and he looked horrible. He does not even look good. So he has a lot to prove here in this game if Deshaun Watson can return to form. I don't think he will. That's the issue. I think there's so much hanging over his head, and the fact that this is, Cleveland, and that Cleveland ruins everything they touches, even Baker Mayfield, who I loved, who I was rooting for, but they ruined everything, and I don't think this is going to be much of a competition for Seattle, so I'm going to give them the win here. Going into week 9, they will be facing the Baltimore Ravens. This is another one where I think Seattle's going to have a legitimate tough time. Lamar Jackson got a massive contract extension, got a good receiver in the draft in Zay Flowers. I overall think this is going to be a very good team. He also has help in guys like Odell Beckham Jr., who there is a question mark there because he didn't play at all last year due to his injury in the Super Bowl. But I definitely think that is a question mark to put, but I still think that team's going to be very good if they can stay healthy. If they can stay healthy. Injuries have been their concern. Lamar missed some time last year. I think a lot of players on that team missed some time last year. Upside, you don't have Greg Roman anymore. He is no longer mangling that offense. Your only other question will be in your head coach, John Harbaugh, who is... It depends on if those issues were just Greg Roman or if it was also John Harbaugh. I think it's mostly Greg Roman. Because John Harbaugh has shown that he can coach. He's clearly shown that. But overall, I think that this will still be a team, if they can stay healthy, that will be able to beat the Seahawks. So Ravens, you get the win for this one. And going into Week 10, this is a real interesting game, at least for me, of course, against the Washington Commanders. Now, this one will be in Seattle, in the Clink, at home, in front of the fans. Of course, there's a lot of games here that will be in the Clink, but this one will be mostly important because I will actually be at this game. I will be traveling all the way from where I live currently, all the way to the west, well, Pacific Northwest, technically, to watch this game with a buddy of mine, so I will get to see it in its all entirety. And this is a game I think that Seattle will win. The Commanders, first year, new owner, definitely moving in a right track is what it seems like. They've made strides to upgrade their stadium with all the issues it's had. Frankly, they need a new stadium, but I don't know how well they're going to be able to get that. But they're making, it seems like ownership now with Dan Snyder gone, thank God, and I know everybody in the league's enjoying that now. It seems like everybody is going to just enjoy to see what this Commanders team could be. They still have a lot of decent weapons. They got Chase Young. They still have Daron Payne. They have Scary Terry. Quarterbacks are going to be up in the air. They're going to be giving the ball to Sam Howell and say, hey, this is your shot, kid. You looked pretty good when we drafted you, but you still have a lot to prove. So this is your year. And I think that while this Commanders team will be the weakest team of that division, because you got the Cowboys and the Giants and the Eagles. I think this will be the weakest team, and I think Seattle will be able to get this job done here, but I still like where this team could be going in the future. So I do at least want to keep record note of that. So I think Commanders, as much as I want to like you, even though I think you need a new name, Seattle, it's yours to win here. And then, for Week 11, we got another game against the Rams. The Rams, like I said, I had stated previously, I think Seattle's going to win this one. The Rams just in disarray, and if they keep falling in disarray, that's going to be the win. So Seattle, you're going to get the sweep here of the series. Then going into Week 12, we have the first game against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Niners played really well last season. Brock Purdy, superstar. Deebo Samuel, very good. Christian McCaffrey, who I questioned when he was brought on the team because of his injury proneness, but he proved to be very well. But like I said, the main point of that team was Brock Purdy. A rookie, Mr. Irrelevant, came off the bench, played his ass off, and deservedly so, which I will congratulate him for. Because he was a damn good player, and even I had to admit it. They swept all the teams they had played that year, even the Seahawks, which they did 3 times, including the playoff game, which I honestly thought Seattle may stood a chance in that one. But unfortunately for Purdy, at the end of that playoff season against the Eagles, he got hurt. He was luckily able to avoid Tommy John surgery, so that could be good of. But the only thing for this year will be, can he keep replicating what he did? I think he can. I most certainly think he'll be able to be just as good if that elbow holds up, which I think it will. Now, normally this is always a game where I think one team wins one game and then the other one team's the other. I'm going to give this one to Seattle, but I definitely think the next one will go to San Francisco, which will be in Week 14. So we'll just mark that down now for Week 14, that I think the 49ers will win that one. It's going to be very interesting for that. Then moving on to Week 14, I think here's where you get your next loss of the season, and this is against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, they're always at least consistently good aside from the years that they are injury prone. They have a lot of talent on the team. Trayvon Diggs, you've shown that Tony Pollard's the guy. You always have a good offensive line, except for, I believe, Zach Martin, who they're kind of in contract talks with, which I believe he does deserve to get paid because he is very damn good. You got great wide receivers. You got CeeDee Lamb. And, of course, linebackers Micah Parsons. So you have overall a very good team. Now, the issue for Seattle comes in the fact of how are you going to handle it? That offensive line's really going to have to hold against someone like Micah Parsons. Geno Smith's going to have to throw very well against someone like Trayvon Diggs. Now, my only issue with Trayvon Diggs, great player, gets great interceptions, but the issue is the man can get burnt by a receiver sometimes. And when you have possibly a good receiving core in DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and now you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is selected as a massive steal by the Seahawks, and not to mention the fact that you could also have an underrated undrafted wideout in Jake Bobo, who proved himself in the preseason. So that could be a bit of an issue for them. But overall, I think the Cowboys, if they can avoid injury, can settle down, and I think they will definitely win this one. So Cowboys fans, as much as I hate to say this, I think y'all get the win here. Going into Week 14 against the 49ers, I had stated that one before. I think we lose this one. The 49ers win that one, just because that game's always how it goes. But however, I think in Week 15, however, facing the Philadelphia Eagles, Seattle, you're going to get your third straight loss. Philly coming right off high from a Super Bowl showing. You didn't win, but you tried. You still got a good lot of people on your team. I think I'm going to expect Jalen Hurts to play very well. Jason Kelce, of course, a reliable veteran. Still good receivers and your defenders, and you're seemingly to form the front seven of the Georgia Bulldogs. So you're now just the Georgia Eagles, or the Philadelphia Bulldogs. I don't know, whichever one you want to go with. But overall, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are still going to be way too good, and I think at that point, Seattle can't win that one. I think it's going to be way too difficult. So I think Seattle, unfortunately, you're not going to make this one. Philly, you got the victory in the bag here. And then going into Week 16 and 17, which Week 16 will be a Christmas Eve game against the Tennessee Titans. Now the Titans, interesting division because I think it might be the worst of their division. Now, overall, I think as a team, Titans are going to be sitting probably maybe second to third place. I think this is the Jags division to win. I think it certainly is theirs. You guys have okay people. You have D-Hop, and you have two incredibly raw quarterbacks in Malik Willis and Will Levis. Two incredibly raw guys who, I don't know why you took Will Levis if you took Malik Willis, and if he's just as raw. And you also have Ryan Tannehill, who's still, I think, under that giant albatross contract that they signed him to. I think this is going to be a big struggle fest for Tennessee, however, because I think you're still undecided on a lot of things. You have great receivers. Like I said, I think D-Hop's still going to be good, but I think Derrick Henry, King Henry, still going to be good, but I think, unfortunately, they will not be able to win this one, so this will be Seattle's to take. And then Week 17 against the Steelers, I'm going to give it to Seattle on that one, just because the Steelers, still some question marks whether Kenny Pickett's their guy. He's shown he can be good, though. Their wideouts can still show they've been good. Najee Harris still shows they can be good. They did get a new offensive lineman. Thank God for them, because that means they definitely need it. That secondary still has a lot to be questioned, because that defense has been up and down. So it's definitely up in the air. But overall, I have the Seattle Seahawks going 10-6 on the year. I don't think they're going to win the division because it'll be up definitely between them and the 49ers. But I definitely think it will be a close division. So I have them going 10-6, most likely making the playoffs as a wild card team. And I definitely think if they do make it as a division winner, it will definitely be between the 49ers, because the Cardinals and Rams really ain't going to prove much against us, against both teams. So yeah, frankly. Now, overall, what do I think of this team? I think the Seahawks are overall going to be... I think their issues are going to be exactly what I think they would be. And that's going to be the forming of a secondary. Seattle secondaries have always been the struggle since the LOB's end, and I really think that's where it's going to be they struggle. Sorry, I had to make a real quick wardrobe change. It was getting freaking hot in here. But anyways, back to what we were talking about. As for the what issues Seattle will have, I think it'll definitely be their secondary. I think their secondary has certainly been something that's been of issue over the last few years. Of course, having Ken Norton as our defensive coordinator was not the best idea, because he seemed to not know how to run a secondary. His underling, Clint Hurt, though, I think definitely is an improvement, and it is clearly shown slowly. So I think that forming of a secondary will be one of our down points. We did invest heavily in the draft overall in the run defense. Run defense was something clearly we struggled with. Of course, there was that game against Josh Jacobs and the Raiders where he absolutely just stormed off to end the game. So yeah, there was unfortunately that. So I think that'll definitely be a downside for us. In the upsides department, I think we'll have a really good wide receiver core. Of course, we brought some backup for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh, who I think will definitely be there to help, because really it was just Kenneth Walker because of the loss of Travis Homer and Rashad Penny. So I definitely think that will be of help. Overall, like I said, I feel this to be a 10-6 team. Really not middle of the road, but kind of up their team. Something that still they're going to be just as good. Do I think they're Super Bowl contenders? No. Do I think they're at least a good playoff team? Absolutely. And I think we could at least see that maybe a divisional round exit at best. I mean, at worst, we'll probably just lose in the wild card round again, which, depending on our opponent, would at least make sense. But yeah, I think this is a very decent team. Geno Smith, his contract was something that I was not extremely up there about in that case. I really didn't think he was going to get that much money. I was honestly more thinking he was going to get $20 million a year rather than what he was getting, than that massive contract he was getting. But I guess you can blame that on Deshaun Watson, who got a massive contract extension. But yeah, this was seriously a decent team without Russell Wilson, which was something we didn't expect to happen. And I think hopefully Geno can keep up that level of production that he has, especially with his age and him being in the league almost about 10 years now. I think this might be his 10th or 11th year, if I can remember off the top of my head for that. But I definitely think this team does have a lot of upsides. There is some issues it will need to fix, and I think in terms of schedule, it will provide some challenge. But overall, I think this will be a decent team, and this will be a good year to be a Hawks fan, because it's certainly if last year didn't shock some people and install some confidence, this year definitely could install some confidence. Now, I'm certainly not thinking that this team's going to be like a 13-3 team. Absolutely not. I said 10-6 because there are some elements here that could prove to be a challenge for us. Like I said, the Lions, the Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, Bengals, Ravens, all those guys I think could prove issues for us. But it will only be able to tell as the season goes on. So we will definitely have to see that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. It'll definitely be interesting to see how this season goes. I'm hopefully going to try throughout the season to do a lot more for this channel. I do want to do some, of course, live reactions to the games. I'll try to commentate some of the games if I can. It will all just depend on how my work schedule works, because it's always all up in the air, and I barely ever get weekends off. But if not, I will always try to do ones like these where I at least try to recap everything and try to get my thoughts in. I also am going to do that for college football when that comes around, which is not even the first video I have to do today. I have to do the college one because there's literally a game tomorrow. So I will definitely will be probably seeing more stuff like this, but I definitely will try to get live streaming in whenever I can fit it into a work schedule. I don't really ever know my work schedule until typically on Fridays when they actually do release a schedule for my job. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. But I think it's just good to have NFL football back, just given everybody's excitement and everything. So it'll definitely be an interesting season, and it will hell of a be a wild ride. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of my content. Don't know why you would, though, because I'm pretty much garbage. But if you do, and you're that much of a sicko, go ahead, right ahead and do that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good morning, noon, night, whatever time of the day you're watching. Go Hawks.
We're the ones they can't hold.